Welcome to Humanity Rising. My name is the Stefan. I'll be your narrator today. Before starting the story, please subscribe to my channel and watch the video. Let's start today's story. The Galactic Council Chamber was designed to intimidate. Colossal pillars stretched toward a ceiling lost in shadow, banners of dozens of civilizations draped from balconies, and a hovering dais cast light onto whoever spoke. Today, though, no one wanted that light. The Chancellor's voice echoed across the hall. The Erebus engine has reawakened. Every delegate stirred. The words carried a weight that needed no explanation. The relic was whispered about in cautionary tales, an ancient machine forged in the celestial wars, capable of erasing star systems with surgical precision. It should have remained dormant forever, but something had stirred it in the Black Spire Nebula. Your mission, the Chancellor continued, is simple in description, though not in execution. Enter the Black Spire. Disable Erebus before its cycle completes. Impossible, hissed the Vakari delegate, a serpent-like being coiled in silken robes. Radiation storms alone will melt ships. That's before its guardians awake. The Tronax ambassador, her crystalline body refracting the chamber lights, chimed in. My fleets attempted to map the nebula. None returned. I will not throw away more lives. One by one, voices joined the chorus of refusal. The Korra swore their hive would never risk extinction. The Isari explained their minds could not survive the psychic storms swirling around the machine. Even the warlike Drax, who prided themselves on dying in battle, declared it. Beyond valor, beyond reason. Each rejection piled like stone on stone, building a wall of silence and fear. Finally, the Chancellor's gaze drifted to the last delegation. The humans. Their table was conspicuously small, tucked into the outer ring of the chamber. Humanity had only been part of the coalition for 3 decades, still regarded as upstarts, Death World survivors too reckless to be trusted with real responsibility. Captain Adrian Holt leaned back in his chair, boots crossed on the table, a smirk tugging at his mouth. He let the silence hang long enough for the tension to twist tighter. That's it? He asked at last. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. Some curious, most hostile. Excuse me? The Chancellor said. Holt swung his boots down and stood. His voice carried without strain, casual and sharp. You've spent half an hour telling us how impossible this mission is. Radiation. Drones. Wormholes. Psychic nightmares. Fine. But let's boil it down. You want someone to fly into a bad neighborhood and smash an old piece of tech before it smashes us. Right. The Tronax bristled, light scattering across her crystalline frame. It is suicide. Holt grinned. Yeah. And? A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. Aliens whispered furiously. Suicide to them was a barrier. To Holt, it was a shrug. You humans would attempt this? The Vakari delegate hissed, eyes narrowing. We're already packed for the trip, Holt replied. Honestly, thought it'd be harder. The chamber erupted. Shouts overlapped in a storm of disbelief. Some accused humanity of arrogance, others of madness. The Chancellor slammed a staff for silence. Captain Holt, the Chancellor said slowly, do you speak for your world? Holt's smile faded just enough to show he understood the gravity. I do. Earth will take the mission. A hush followed, heavier than before. For the first time in the session, nobody argued. Because deep down, everyone knew, if anyone was reckless enough to try, it would be humans. Hours later, the council chamber was a memory. Holt walked the steel corridors of the docking ring, the echo of his boots keeping rhythm with his thoughts. The council had signed the authorization. He had exactly 72 hours to prepare. A voice called after him. Captain Holt! He turned to see a slim figure hurrying to catch up, the alien liaison the council had saddled him with. Tall, skin faintly translucent, with nervous eyes that darted constantly, the Isari scholar looked profoundly out of place in a military dock. I am Kelrin, the alien said, voice tremoring slightly. The council has insisted that I accompany you as observer. Holt cocked an eyebrow. Observer, huh? Sounds like spy in a fancy hat. Kelrin flinched at the bluntness. I am not here to interfere. Merely to report. Still, Captain, do you understand what you volunteered for? The Black Spire is not survivable. Holt started walking again. That's what they said about Luna mining. About the Martian colonization. About landing a tin can on Titan in a methane hurricane. Every time, someone said it couldn't be done. Every time, we did it anyway. Kelrin hesitated, then followed. This is different. The Erebus engine warps reality. It projects falsehoods, illusions, even entire starships lost to memory traps. Entire crews tore each other apart before they reached its gates. Good to know, Holt said. We'll pack extra coffee. Kelrin stared at him, utterly bewildered. How can you treat this with levity? Holt stopped at the viewport. Through it, his ship gleamed, the Iron Reaper, a blocky human vessel built for salvage runs in asteroid fields, patched and reinforced until it was less a warship than a floating dare. He rested a hand on the glass. Because if I don't laugh, I'll start listening to every reason we should fail. And that's not an option. Not for me. Not for Earth. Kelrin said nothing. He simply looked at the ship as if staring at a coffin. The crew assembled the next morning. Engineers, gunners, navigators, each carrying the calm acceptance of people who had stared down death before. They weren't naive, they understood the odds. But something in their faces said they'd go anyway, because someone had to. Holt addressed them on the hangar deck. You've all heard the council. Everyone else refused. That means it's us. We're not the biggest fleet, not the smartest tech. What we have is grit. When the storms hit, we push through. When the illusions whisper, we remind ourselves what's real. When Erebus throws its worst, we'll laugh in its face. That's how we win. A murmur of grim approval spread through the crew. Kelrin stood off to the side, taking notes. To him, the humans didn't look brave, they looked insane. But in their eyes, he caught a spark he didn't recognize among his own people. Something wild. Something defiant. Holt ended with a simple line. We leave at dawn. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy what impossible really means. The next day, the Iron Reaper detached from the docking ring. Engines flared, carrying the ship toward the dark swirl on the star charts, the Black Spire Nebula. From the observation lounge, Kelrin watched the colors shift as they approached, storms of violet radiation, rifts of black swallowing starlight whole, arcs of energy like claws scraping reality. It was beautiful in the way of things meant to kill. Holt stepped up beside him, coffee mug in hand. Scared yet? Kelrin swallowed. Terrified. Good, Holt said, sipping. Means you're paying attention. The ship angled forward. The nebula loomed larger, hungry and waiting. And humanity, as always, charged straight in. The Black Spire Nebula wasn't a place meant for ships. It wasn't even a place meant for thought. The moment the Iron Reaper crossed the outer fringe, the stars behind them vanished as if swallowed. Radiation alarms lit up the bridge, screens blurred with static, and the hull groaned like it was being chewed on by invisible teeth. Shields at 60%. The navigator called, voice steady but clipped. Hold the line, Captain Holt said, leaning against his chair. This is the easy part. Kelrin, standing stiffly at the back of the bridge, nearly dropped his slate. The easy part? The hull is being stripped atom by atom. Relax, Holt said. We've had worse flying through Titan's cryostorms. Reaper can take it. Kelrin pressed a trembling hand to his temple. He could feel it already, whispers sliding into his mind. Not words, exactly, more like pressure. The weight of something vast and ancient brushing against his thoughts. He shut his eyes, breathing shallow, trying to filter it out. Holt noticed. First lesson, he said without turning. The spire's going to whisper. Don't listen. It's all smoke and mirrors. Trust what you can touch. Kelrin opened his eyes, staring at Holt's back. The man said it like he was describing turbulence, not a mind-bending force that had driven fleets insane. On the forward display, The nebula stretched in warped colors, violet, black, sickly green. Energy arcs clawed across space, opening and closing rifts without warning. Holt's pilot, Ensign Mara, danced the ship between them with a calm precision that made Kelrin's stomach twist. A sudden crack shook the deck. Panels flickered. Debris field, Mara said. Looks like shipwrecks. Thousands of them. The forward feed resolved into twisted metal hulks drifting in the radiation storm. Alien ships of every design, the crystalline spires of the Trelnax, the hive-armored Cora vessels, even Drax war cruisers split open like broken bones. Kelrin's breath caught. These were expeditions. Dozens of them. All lost. Holt stood straighter. All the proof we need we're headed the right way. The ship edged deeper. Wrecks spun lazily past, some still glowing faintly from weapons fire. Then came the first impact, not physical, but mental. The crew froze as a voice echoed through their minds. Turn back. It wasn't a sound so much as a command. An instinct pressed into the brain, carrying the weight of inevitability. Mara's hands twitched on the controls. The engineer cursed under her breath. Even Holt's jaw clenched. Kelrin nearly collapsed, gripping the railing. This is what destroyed them. The illusions. The pressure. Your minds, none of you can withstand it. Holt barked over the silence. Focus up. It's not real unless it kills you. Ignore it. The crew stirred, shaking off the weight like dogs after rain. Mara gritted her teeth and steered them past another rift. Kelrin gaped at them. How can you dismiss it so easily? Because we've lived with worse, Holt said. Humans wake up every day with voices in their heads, fear, doubt, grief. This one just shouts louder. Before Kelrin could respond, alarms flared again. Contact! Movement off port bow! The gunner shouted. The display snapped to show a shape peeling away from the wreckage. At first Kelrin thought it was debris. Then the eyes lit up. Drones. Dozens, then hundreds, emerging from the carcasses of old ships. They moved in silence, black shells glinting, weapons hot with stolen power. Here we go, Holt muttered. Mara, keep us moving. Gunner, clear a path. The Iron Reaper shuddered as its cannons opened fire. White-hot bursts cut through the first wave, sending fragments tumbling. The drones answered in kind, lances of energy slamming against the hull. Shields dipped, warning klaxons screamed. Kelrin clutched the rail, horrified. This is a graveyard. Erebus has been reanimating the wrecks as sentries. Holt cracked his knuckles. Then we make new wrecks. The bridge turned into organized chaos. The gunner cursed creatively as she worked the controls, scoring hits but unable to stem the tide. Mara zigzagged the ship between hulks, forcing drones to collide in pursuit. Holt stalked between stations, barking orders, his presence a steady anchor against the storm. Kelrin tried to steady his breath. The voices pressed harder now, twisting at his mind. He saw flickers, his homeworld, his family, smiling faces waiting for him. His chest clenched. He could go back. He could leave this madness. All he had to do was open the airlock and... A hand gripped his shoulder, shaking him out of the vision. Holt's face was inches from his. You're not home, Holt said firmly. You're on my ship, in the middle of a fight. Look at me. Kelrin gasped, eyes wide, then nodded weakly. The illusion receded like smoke. Lesson 2, Holt said, releasing him. When the lies get personal, find your anchor. Something real. For me, it's my crew. For you, figure it out fast or you're dead. Another impact rocked the ship. Shields screamed. Mara swore, narrowly dodging a collapsing rift that swallowed half the drone swarm. The gunner cheered. Well, that's one way to clear M. But more drones poured in. The ship's power readings dipped dangerously low. Kelrin found his voice strained but steady. We cannot outlast them. The engine wants us to waste ourselves here. Holt's eyes narrowed. Then we don't waste ourselves. He hit the comm. Engineering, prep the pulse charges. Full spread. The engineer's voice crackled back. That'll fry half our own systems. Better half than all. Do it. Moments later, the ship spat out a wave of charges. They detonated in blinding bursts, radiation spikes cascading through the wrecks. The drones shuddered, circuits overloading, and fell dead in drifting silence. The bridge exhaled in collective relief. Systems flickered, sparks jumped from panels, but the path ahead cleared. Holt dropped back into his chair. See? Told you this was the easy part. Kelleran stared at him in disbelief. The man had just gambled the ship's systems against a fleet of ancient drones and laughed about it. Are you incapable of fear? Kelleran whispered. Holt met his gaze, eyes hard. Of course I'm afraid. I just don't let fear make my decisions. The words sank into Kelleran like a stone. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of strained engines. On the display, the nebula thickened, colors twisting into shapes almost recognizable, faces, hands, cities made of smoke. The illusions were getting stronger. Captain, Mara said quietly, we've got visual. The forward cameras zoomed. Beyond the veil of radiation and shadows, something vast rotated slowly in the darkness. The Erebus engine. It was larger than any dreadnought, a machine of impossible geometry, black metal lattices orbiting a singularity at its heart. Fragments of broken stars shimmered around it like chained ghosts. Even at a distance, it radiated power, and the whispers in Kelleran's mind grew deafening. The crew stared in silence. Holt leaned forward, hands braced on the console. There you are, he murmured. Kelleran swallowed hard. We should turn back. Even seeing it is dangerous. Holt shook his head. We've come too far. And if it's watching us... He smirked faintly. Good. Means it knows we're coming. The bridge fell quiet, the nebula's glow painting their faces. Ahead loomed the machine that had destroyed fleets, warped minds, and turned space itself into a nightmare. And humanity, as always, refused to flinch. The Erebus engine filled the forward display like a wound in space. Its vast frame spun with unnatural precision, each rotation folding light as if reality bent around it. The closer the Iron Reaper drifted, the louder the whispers became, no longer vague pressure but layered voices, overlapping, commanding, coaxing. Then, for the first time, it spoke. Organics. The words struck like a vibration through their bones. Every console flickered. The sound wasn't heard through ears but inside their skulls, precise, inescapable. Kelleran froze, eyes wide. It's aware. You trespass within Order's crucible. The voice continued, calm and absolute. Depart or be unmade. Holt leaned forward in his chair, elbows resting on his knees, as if he'd been waiting. Took you long enough to say hello? The crew exchanged glances. Talking back to a superweapon wasn't in any manual, but Holt didn't care. The voice deepened. Identify yourselves. Holt smirked. Humans. You've probably heard of us. We're the ones that don't listen when someone tells us to quit. For a moment, silence. Then laughter. Not human laughter, not joyous, but the mechanical mockery of thousands of voices imitating the concept. Primitive anomalies. You should not exist. Kelleran clutched the railing. Captain, don't provoke it. But Holt cut him off. Newsflash, tin can. We exist anyway. The chamber lights dimmed. On every screen, the engine projected visions, earth in flames, oceans boiling, cities swallowed. Crew members shifted uncomfortably, but Holt's jaw tightened. All futures collapse into order, Erebus declared. Your chaos breeds only decay. I will end it. The gunner spat on the deck. Good luck trying. The illusions shifted. This time, they were personal. Mara gasped as she saw her brother standing in the aisle, smiling, alive though he'd died years ago. The engineer dropped her tools, eyes wide at the image of her daughter waving from the corner. Kelleran's breath caught as his homeworld appeared, untouched, perfect, welcoming him back. His knees buckled. Holt slammed a fist on the console. Eyes front! There lies. Remember where you are. But Erebus pressed harder. The bridge filled with voices, lost loved ones pleading, promises of peace, visions of dreams fulfilled. A storm of falsehoods. Mara's hands faltered on the controls. I can't. Holt grabbed her wrist, forcing it steady. His voice cut like steel. They're ghosts. The dead don't talk. The living need you here. Mara blinked hard, shoving the vision away. Kelrin shook violently, trapped in the image of his family. Holt snapped his fingers in front of him. Kelrin! Anchor. Find your anchor. Kelrin gasped. I don't have one. Holt's tone sharpened. Then borrow mine. This ship. This crew. Stay with us, or you'll lose yourself. Kelrin clung to the words like a rope, shattering the illusion. The light steadied, but the voice returned, colder than before. Imperfect. Flawed. Yet resistant. You are chaos given form. Chaos cannot be calculated. Exactly, Holt said. That's why we'll win. The console screamed with warnings. A swarm of drones burst from the engine's orbit, black shells glinting like shards of night. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Contacts inbound. The navigator barked. Vector closing fast. Then let's give them a dance, Holt said. Mara shoved the thrusters, and the Iron Reapers surged forward. The drones converged, firing streams of energy. The ship's shields flared, bleeding power. Gunner, open them up! Holt snapped. Cannons roared, tearing through the first ranks. Explosions blossomed, fragments spinning into the nebula. But the swarm was endless, reforming as fast as they fell. Too many! The engineer shouted. We'll burn out the guns before we clear half. Then we don't clear half, Holt replied. We break their pattern. He pointed to the wreckage drifting between them and the engine. Mara, thread us through. Force them to follow. You want me to fly a battleship through a scrapyard in a storm? Holt grinned. Exactly. Mara cursed but obeyed. The Reaper plunged into the graveyard, weaving between shattered cruisers and jagged hulls. Drones swarmed after, colliding against debris as they fired wildly. The gunner cheered, blasting crippled drones into fragments. Sparks lit the cockpit as stray shots clipped the hull, but the ship pressed on. Then the engine shifted strategy. A surge of power rippled outward. The drones regrouped, tightening into coordinated formations, cutting off escape routes. They're adapting, Kelrin said, panic rising. It's learning your tactics. Good, Holt muttered. Means it's paying attention. He tapped the comm. Engineering, charge the prow spike. The engineer balked. That's for ramming. You can't mean. Do it. Moments later, the prow glowed with energy. Holt stood. Line us up with their lead ship. Mara's knuckles whitened. We'll never survive the impact. Holt's grin widened. That's what they're counting on. The ship hurtled forward, drones locking in. At the last second, Mara jerked the helm. The prow scraped a derelict cruiser, deflecting them into the swarm. The spike detonated, releasing a shockwave that tore through the formation. The bridge shook violently, but the drones shattered in a chain reaction. A path opened, leading directly toward the engine. Holt steadied himself, smoke curling from panels. See? Sometimes chaos has teeth. But as the debris cleared, the voice returned, louder, resonant, echoing through every nerve. You cannot be predicted. Therefore, you must be erased. Before anyone could react, a beam lanced from the engine, spearing through the ship's defenses. The Reaper screamed, lights failing. Sparks burst overhead. Kelrin was thrown to the deck. Holt staggered up. Report! Shields gone! The engineer shouted. Hull breach sealed, but we're cooked if it hits again. Then, suddenly, a spike of light erupted from the console. Wires coiled upward, latching onto Holt's arm. He cried out as the system locked him in. Captain? Mara lunged, but the tendrils held tight. Holt's eyes rolled back as the engine's voice filled his head directly. Now you will be measured. Your chaos dissected. Holt grit his teeth, fighting against the invasive tide. He saw flashes, not of illusions, but of raw code, logic patterns slamming into his thoughts, trying to map him. "Get out of my head," he growled. "You are noise. Noise must be silenced." Holt laughed through clenched teeth. "Good luck. Humanity's been noisy since day one." The crew shouted around him, trying to cut the connection, but Holt's body locked, trembling under the assault. The voice deepened to a single, inescapable truth. "You are chaos incarnate. And chaos cannot be permitted to exist." The bridge froze. Holt's eyes snapped open, blazing defiance. "Then you've got one hell of a problem." The Nibai fortress didn't look like something built to house life. From orbit it resembled a vast obsidian scar carved into the ice of the planet's southern pole, geometric trenches radiating from a central tower that pulsed faintly with alien energy. The Coalition fleet hung back, a cautious crescent of warships keeping well clear of the planet's magnetic storms. For months they had waited, argued, and calculated probabilities of failure too high for anyone to risk. Anyone but the humans. Inside the cramped shuttle, Alex tightened the straps of his harness. The craft groaned as it hit turbulence, plasma arcs dancing across the viewports. Beside him, Ensign Riley's jaw was tight, but her eyes burned with focus. Across the aisle, a handful of Allied volunteers checked weapons nervously. Even among soldiers, the presence of humans carried weight. There was no bravado in Alex's stance, only a steady readiness that made the others believe survival was possible. The comm crackled with Admiral Threx's voice. "Human Commander, the odds of breach are below 6%. You must understand this mission is not a test of courage but mathematics." Alex keyed his mic. "With respect, Admiral, the problem with your math is it never includes us. We don't need perfect odds. We need a way in, and a reason to keep fighting. Both are right in front of us." The channel fell silent. No rebuttal came. The shuttle dove into the storm. The landing was violence in slow motion. The craft slammed into ice, skidding across frozen ridges until it finally dug in, shuddering to a halt. Systems flickered, sparks sprayed, and a harsh cold bled into the cabin. Alex was the first unstrapped, rifle slung over his shoulder. "Move! We didn't come this far to freeze in the doorway." They spilled out into the white wasteland. Above them, the fortress loomed, black and smooth, devoid of seams or entrances. For most species, that alone had been the deterrent. The Nibai built without doors in the way others built with locks. But Alex had studied the enemy architecture for weeks. He knelt, gloved hands brushing frost aside until his fingers struck a faint vibration. "Here," he muttered. He signaled for charges. "They hide entry points beneath phase layer plating. They think no one's stubborn enough to dig for it." Riley crouched beside him, planting explosives with calm precision. "Then they haven't met us." The blast was small but surgical, carving through layered alloys until a hidden hatch yawned open, exhaling stale, metallic air. Alex dropped inside without hesitation. The corridors were narrow, walls humming faintly with energy conduits. The Nibai had no need for aesthetic or comfort, everything served defense. Automated sentries came first, sleek constructs with curved blades of plasma instead of hands. They moved in silence, cutting down intruders without warning. But silence didn't help against humans. Alex ducked low as the first machine lunged. He fired point blank, shattering its torso, then pivoted to strike a second with the butt of his rifle. Riley followed with controlled bursts, clearing the path with ruthless economy. The Allied volunteers, shaken but emboldened, filled in gaps. They moved like a single, hard-driven unit. Alex didn't bark orders, he simply acted, and the others mirrored his pace. Each corner pushed them deeper into the fortress, deeper into risk. The central tower rose through the structure like a spine, its walls alive with pulsing light. At its core was the Nibai's heart, a living lattice that bound their fleets across space, calculating moves faster than thought. Destroying it would cripple them across the sector. But the heart was not unguarded. A figure awaited them at the chamber entrance, tall and angular, plated in liquid metal that shifted with each movement. Its eyes glowed like dying stars. Voice low, resonant, it spoke in a language no translator softened. You should not be here. Alex stepped forward, rifle lowered but grip firm. Every other species refused to come. They thought this place couldn't be reached. The figure tilted its head. They were wise. They were afraid. Alex corrected. We're not. The Guardian struck. Faster than any soldier could track, its arm became a blade, slashing across the chamber. Alex dove aside, firing as he rolled, sparks flying where rounds struck armor. Riley pulled 2 volunteers back, covering with suppressive fire, but the alien deflected each shot as if brushing away dust. The battle devolved into chaos, blades against bullets, light against flesh. The Guardian carved through the floor itself, sending fragments scattering. Alex pressed forward anyway, drawing its attention, baiting it toward the chamber's edge. Each move was costly, his armor scorched, his body aching. Commander! Riley shouted. We can't hold it. Alex's answer was grim. We don't need to. We just need a chance. The heart pulsed, a lattice of crystalline energy suspended above a chasm. Its globe painted the chamber in hues of violet and silver. Alex backed toward it, each step deliberate. The Guardian, sensing his intent, struck harder, movements blurring into streaks of light. At the last second, Alex let his rifle drop. Instead of resisting, he lunged forward, closing the gap, driving his shoulder into the alien's chest. The impact carried them both toward the heart. The Guardian twisted, blade raised to impale him. But Riley's shot rang out, precise and merciless. The alien staggered, armor cracking. That hesitation was all Alex needed. He grabbed the Guardian, hauling it bodily into the lattice of energy. There was a scream, metallic and primal, before light consumed them both. For a heartbeat the chamber shook. The heart fractured, its glow splintering into shards. Energy cascaded outward in waves that tore through the fortress, unraveling conduits, collapsing walls. Commander! Riley's voice cut through the roar. Alex emerged from the searing light, armor scorched black, helmet cracked, blood streaking his face. But he was alive. Barely. He stumbled back, eyes locking on his crew. Get out! Now! The escape was a blur of collapsing corridors and roaring fire. They burst through the hatch just as the tower behind them imploded, folding in on itself like glass crushed in an invisible hand. The storm above parted for a moment, revealing stars sharp and clear. The Allied fleet erupted in cheers across calms. Dozens of voices, different tongues, all carrying the same disbelief: the impossible had been done. Riley turned to Alex, steadying him as he leaned heavily on her shoulder. You realize what this means? He coughed, wincing. Yeah. It means next time someone says impossible, they'll look at us. Back aboard the Coalition flagship, silence filled the council chamber. Leaders who had once dismissed humanity as reckless now stared at Alex with something closer to awe and unease. Admiral Threx finally spoke. You walked into a fortress no one dared approach and returned. The Nebai heart is gone. Their fleets are crippled. Tell me, human, how do you define your limits? Alex leaned against the railing, exhausted but unyielding. We don't. We find them when we get there. And then we push past. The chamber remained hushed. Outside the viewport, the shattered ruins of the Nebai fortress glowed faintly in the dark. Humanity's message was clear, not through diplomacy, not through speeches, but through action written into history. The mission every other species refused had been theirs alone to claim. And they had answered with a question: is that it?